In Kenya, justice don't just delay, some disappears. And it's not just the ordinary mwananchi who is left in the cold. 2 members of parliament gunned down in eerily similar fashion.
Kabete MP George Muchai, his 2 bodyguards and a driver were early this morning shot dead in cold blood at Kenyatta Avenue, Uhuru Highway roundabout in Nairobi.
Top story, the breaking news on the shooting of Kasipul MP Charles Ong'ondo, where now our reporter Emmanuel To joins us live here by way of phone. Emmanuel, good evening to you, and what have you managed to gather regarding the incident which happened in the evening?
February 7th, 2015, the nation woke up to the death of Kabete MP George Muchai, who was assassinated in cold blood. 2025, Charles Ong'ondo, different decade, same silence. This is a story of a nation haunted by its own silence. George Muchai wasn't just Kabete MP. He was a long-serving unionist, former Deputy Secretary General of KOTU, and a man who had dared to expose corruption at the heart of Kenya's most powerful workers' union. But his courage came at a price. On the evening of 6th of February 2015, it is a normal day at George Muchai's residence in Kagundo Road. The late Kabete MP, George Muchai, his wife Susan Muchai, Muchai's sister-in-law Judy Loda, Muchai's daughter, and one of their relatives left home to Westland for a family gathering and finally have some dinner at Galileo Lounge. Unknown to them that this would be the last time they were having time together. After dinner that night at around 2 a.m., Honorable Muchai, his 2 bodyguards Samuel Lekakeny and Kimathi, and their driver Stephen Wambugu boarded their Toyota Fortuner, while the wife Susan Loda, the daughter and a relative boarded a different salon car to head back home after a long happy evening. On their way home at around 3 a.m. at Kenyatta Avenue, Uhuru Highway roundabout, the driver slowed down to allow him to buy a newspaper at a general post office along the Kenyatta Avenue. Unknown to them that a car had been trailing them from Westlands. A white saloon car with a Ugandan number plate hit their vehicle on the right side. Before pulling up in front of them, a masked man shot them at a close range. A man with G3 rifle sent 4 gunshots, killing the driver first, the legislator, and 2 of his bodyguards. After firing the shots, the gunman proceeded to pick 2 pistols from the slain bodyguards and a briefcase that was in the car, while George Muchai's pistol was found intact. Muchai's family in their salon car would experience such a horrific execution of their kin in the early morning of 7th. This death sent shockwaves across the nation, with different leaders including President Uhuru Kenyatta asking for speedy investigations. Committee on Administration and National Security gave the then CS for Internal Security, Joseph Nkaiseri, 72 hours to bring the murderers to book. Nkaiseri on his account said that the gunman style of killing had all the hallmarks of well-executed plan. But wait, before we go deeper, Honorable Muchai said that there are some people in KOTU who wanted to eliminate him because he dared to expose their massive financial fraud in the Umbrella Workers Union.
To the effect that I'm involved in a love affair with someone's wife, and that there is a bitter husband somewhere who had given me a week's notice to withdraw from that affair, or he spilled the beans. I want to say that this is a fabrication of the people who are opposed to my leadership in KOTU and who want to eliminate me and attribute my elimination to the so-called bitter husband. Senior KOTU officials who hold key positions to resign honorably from KOTU, or I be compelled to seek legal means to get them out of the labor movement on grounds of impropriety. That I have filed a petition in which I am seeking the removal of 6 key officials, namely the Secretary General of KOTU, the Chairman General of KOTU, the Treasurer General of KOTU, the first signing trustee, and 2 other trustees, as a people who are held to be in charge and control the property, funds and monies of court.
At that time, the mentioned Kotu positions were held by Francis Atwoli, Rajab Moondi, Rebecca Nyathogora, and Francis Wangara respectively. 1 week before his death, the family say Honorable George had expressed fear for his life, and they demanded nothing but answers. At Honorable Muchai's burial, some leaders hinted to the people they suspected to be behind Honorable Muchai's death.
That is Kotu included. Na wamefanya naye kazi miaka mingi sana. Kwa nini hatuoni hiyo uniform ya Kotu hapa wakiomboleza na sisi? Kwa nini hatuwaoni? Tunataka kuwaeleza safari ni ndefu na hatutanyamaza. Tutawafata, tutawashika, tutawasiaga.
In November last year, on the cameras, George came and said that if I die today, these 6 officials from Kotu, ask them why I died.
Tomorrow we would want to see the big people in Kotu in handcuffs. Because from the talks that we had, there cannot be any doubt that Muchai's death has got everything to do with the problems we have in the trade union movement in this country.
CS for Internal Security Joseph Nkaiseri, on the other hand, called for people who claim to know the people who killed Honorable Muchai to report them to the police. The investigations began. The security officer at the Galileo Lounge in Westland, where the late MP spent some time, was interrogated, and the newspaper vendor was asked to show up and provide any information that could lead to the arrest of the culprits. On 12th of February 2015, 23-year-old Simon Wambugu Gishamba was arrested in Kangemi, Nairobi, in connection with the assassination of former Kabete MP George Muchai, his driver, and 2 bodyguards. Nairobi Court, through Magistrate Benson Nzakio, granted police permission to detain him for additional 14 days to assist in tracing his accomplices and to allow for further investigation into the murder case. These were the scenes at CID Nairobi County Headquarters. Flying Squad Boss Nyali Munga led operation brought 4 more suspects under heavy police escort for more questioning. They were trailed to their hideout at Utheru 87, where they reportedly hid their murder weapons. Eric Muyera Isabwa, alias Chairman, Rafael Kimani Gishia, alias Busha, 23-year-old Mustafa Kimani, alias Musto, Stephen Asitiva Lipapo, alias Chokori, Jen Wanjiru Kimani, alias Shiro, and Margaret Njeri were arrested. On the 27th of February, the 7 were taken to Milimani Law Court, where the DPP Kariako Tobiko directed that they be charged with murder of the Kabete lawmaker George Muchai, his 2 bodyguards, and the driver. They faced 6 separate charges of carjacking, robbery with violence, and illegal possession of firearms, a G3 rifle, and a pistol. The offenses were allegedly committed on the night of 6th and 7th of February 2015. The suspects denied all the charges and were remanded in prison. The plea was postponed to allow the state to provide legal representation for the accused as required for capital offenses like murder, robbery with violence, or treason. After nearly 8 years in remand, on December 21, 2022, the suspects were granted bails due to delays in the prosecution's disclosure of crucial evidence, including call data records. Each was released on a cash bail of 500,000 Kenya shilling or an alternative bond of 700,000 with 2 sureties. On February 19, 2024, the investigations picked up steam when Assistant Superintendent of Police Stephen Mwangi took a stand. A lead communication analyst in the case, Mwangi unveiled a disturbing web of phone calls exchanged between the suspects. Over 150 calls were made among the accused in the days leading up to and following Muchai's murder. Mwangi presented a call matrix spanning February 1st to 10th, 2015, showing a clear pattern of coordination. Particularly telling was the connection between 2 suspects, Rafael Kimani, known as Butcher, and Stephen Astiva. The duo reportedly exchanged more than 100 calls, suggesting a deeply rooted collaboration. Sergeant Francis Olesingila, another key witness, testified that a G3 rifle suspected to be the murder weapon was discovered hidden in a golf bag at the home of Eric Isabwa, also known as Chairman. Alongside the rifle were black mask, balaclavas, a gunpin, and other items believed to have been used in the attack. Singila also revealed that 2 rounds of ammunition were found at the home of co-accused Jane Wanjiru, hidden beneath a concrete stone. However, when questioned, surprisingly, Singila admitted that no DNA or fingerprints tests were conducted on the exhibits. He claimed that by the time the gunpin was recovered, too many people had handled it, compromising potential evidence. Lead investigator Sergeant Moses Otieno Opio corroborated the earlier testimonies. He identified the lone gunman as Eric Isabwa, asserting that the weapon used in the murder had been stolen 5 months earlier from Corporal Patrick Wamae in Karen in October 2014. Opio testified that Muchai and his aides were fired upon relentlessly in an open-range attack. Police later recovered both the G3 rifle and the Keska pistol, the latter stolen from one of Muchai's bodyguards during the ambush. Another breakthrough came through a taxi driver's chilling accounts. He told the court that Mustafa Kimani Anyoni, alias Musto, the alleged mastermind, had hired him to ferry a group of individuals on the night of the murder. Among those picked up was the alleged shooter, Eric Isabwa, also in the car, Rafael Kimani and his girlfriend Margaret Njeri. The driver described unsettling conversations during the ride. One suspect allegedly asked, "Has the scene been cleaned up?" Later, the group drove to Kino, where he saw the man carrying what looked like an AK-47 rifle. The men in the back seat openly discussed how none of the victims had been left alive. Standing before Milimani Chief Magistrate Lucas Onyina, Mustafa denied all charges. He claimed he had no involvement and didn't even know most of his co-accused. "I was just running a second-hand cloth business in Kangemi," he told the court. He dismissed the call logs as circumstantial, explaining that he had contacted Rafael simply to order meat from a local barbecue joint. He claimed the number had been listed on a public poster in Nairobi. When pressed, Mustafa admitted to knowing only one co-accused, Simon Wambugu, a childhood friend. However, these contradicted police reports that he had led officers directly to the house of Eric Isabwa. On August 9, 2024, the court also heard from 2 women, sisters Gladys Waithira and Irene Mudhoni, who testified that their car was hijacked hours before the murder. They were forced into the trunk and their vehicle was allegedly used by the suspect to travel to the crime scene. Prosecutors say this act linked the robbery with violence charges directly to the Muchai's assassination. On April 22, 2025, almost 11 years after his assassination, the prosecution finally closed George Muchai's murder trial. But even as the country waits a verdict, another chilling case unfolded. Kasipul MP Charles Ong'ondo was murdered in cold blood. Wait, why did this case take this long? The case experienced several changes in the presiding judges. Notably, Justice Justus Bonwonga retired in early 2023, necessitating the appointment of a new judge. Such transitions often require time for the new judge to familiarize themselves with the case, leading to delays. In 2019, Justice James Wakiaga recused himself from the case after 5 of the 7 accused claimed bias following the dismissal of their bail review application. This unexpected development led to further delays as the case had to be reassigned. Number 3 is the volume of witnesses' testimonies. The prosecution presented over 35 witnesses, including key individuals like government pathologist Dr. Johansen Odiwuor. The extensive number of testimonies required significant time to be heard and cross-examined. The defense contested the constitutionality of certain charges, particularly those related to robbery with violence under Section 295 and 296(2) of the Penal Code. They argued that this section had been declared unconstitutional, leading to legal debates that prolonged the trial. They argued that, based on the 2016 finding by a 3-judge bench of the High Court, that 5 sections of the Penal Code penalizing robbery with violence and attempted robbery with violence were unconstitutional in the famous case of Joseph Kaberia Kahinga and 11 other cases, and so their case should be terminated henceforth. Led by Isabwa, the accused person argued that they were charged with robbery with violence, contrary to Section 296(2) of the Penal Code, which has since been declared unconstitutional by Justices Jesse Lesit, Stella Mutuku, and Luka Kimaru. They accused the Attorney General's failure to amend Section 295, 296(1), 296(2), 297(1), and 297(2) of the Penal Code that the High Court declared unconstitutional within 18 months period that had been granted by the court. The suspect contended that, since March 2018, robbery with violence and attempted robbery with violence have ceased to be offenses in Kenya, and since only the law can define a crime and penalty, robbery with violence and attempted robbery with violence are not crimes in Kenya. Section 295, 296(1), 296(2), 297(1), and 297(2) of the Penal Code having ceased validity on March 15, 2018. The defense filed multiple applications, including requests for the trial to start afresh with each new judge and petitions to delay judicial retirements. While within their rights, these actions contributed to the overall length of these proceedings as well. But what is truly disturbing are the chilling similarities between Ong'ondo Were case and Honorable Muchai's case. Ong'ondo Were had reported threats to his life, just like Muchai, but nothing happened. Muchai was killed at Uhuru Highway roundabout. Were was gunned down along Ngong Road. Both locations are in central Nairobi, filled with CCTV cameras, police patrols, and high visibility. Yet, the killers executed their missions and vanished. Where do they get this boldness? Investigators in both cases have said that the killers appeared to be highly trained marksmen. Who is protecting them? Will Ong'ondo Were case take a decade to resolve? What if Muchai's case was over and killers punished? Would we be talking about Ong'ondo Were's death today? And if members of parliament with bodyguards and security can be eliminated so easily, what about the ordinary mwananchi? Kenya, how safe are we really? And what do you think? Thank you for watching this video, and please like, share, and subscribe to this channel.